Here we go, chapter 34. The battle raged before the palace. Tusk guards smashed the arrows with their ice spears and shadow shields, while the fur tribe leapt off their sleds and swung javelins. Wolverines and Erkenbears clashed. Balapan dived towards a raring wolf and nestled inside Woodbird. Esker realised there was something strange about the weapons the outlaws were wielding. The Feather Tribe's arrows were tipped with fist-sized silver balls, which burst upon impact and turned the Tusk guards into statues of ice. And the wooden javelins of the Fur Tribe launched seemed to unravel as they stuck, casting a web of inescapable vines around their enemy. Flint gasped, "Blizzard balls! Willow-snatching javelins!" And Esker knew what that meant. The tribes, both of them, were using magic to fight the Ice Queen. Flint landed Woodbird on the bridge with a jolt, and down on the driftlands, Tomkin and Joe were wielding weapons so fast the unravelling vines and ice explosions were just a blur in the moonlight. Tomkin looked up at the bridge as Flint pulled Woodbird to a halt, and then Jay tossed him a quiver and he raced towards his younger brother before thrusting the javelin into Flint's hand and the quiver filled with blizzard balls at Esker. "Get Blue," he roared, turning back to the fight. "We'll hold the guards." And leaving Balapan in the throes of the battle, Esker and Flint leapt out of Woodbird on the bridge. They looked up at the archers leading to the palace hall. "We're going to need a run-up for this," Flint muttered, and they rushed forward together, launching off the bridge and flinging themselves onto the sill of an arch. Esker's pulse quickened as the scene before her. It was as if she had never left. Just metres away lay the empty music box, and beyond that the organ shrouded in icicles and the cluster of silver trees stung with baubles. A familiar fear ripped through her. The Ice Queen stood before the trees, one hand curled around a black orb, and her lips parted just before it, and her other hand wrapped around Blue's neck. And beside them Slither smirked, now and again taunting the fox pup that whimpered in Blue's arms. The Ice Queen lowered the orb, and her expression soared. So many interruptions! And she slipped the orb into the pocket of her gown, and then opened a welcoming arm. "Esker, darling, back so soon?" She paused, but with no voice, no plan, no way to set it all right. She sniggered, and with two tribes of children fighting a battle, they're sure to lose. Blotting out the Ice Queen's words, Esker slotted the frost horn into her quiver, and then pushed a blizzard ball onto the tip of an arrow, knocked it to her bow, and pointed at the Ice Queen. The candles in the chandelier hissed, and the Ice Queen tightened her grasp on Blue's neck. "Not so hasty," she said. "You wouldn't want me to squeeze too tight, would you?" And Blue began to cry. But the Ice Queen's gaze slid to Flint. "And who exactly is your ridiculous little friend?" Flint squared his shoulders. Flint, brother of the chief of the Fur Tribe and famous inventor, and he readied Tomkin's javelin in front of him. "I've come for my little sister and my ma." Esker and Flint leapt from the ice sill, but they hadn't taken more than a few strides across the hall when a dozen Tusk guards stepped from the shadows. Esker gritted her teeth. "They want to fight," Flint spat, "so let's give them one." And Esker filled with fresh rage as she thought of all that the Ice Queen had taken from her, her parents, her memories, her voice, narrowed her eyes and pulled back on her bow. The guards took another step closer, and then Esker fired. Her first blizzard ball hit true, sending one guard crashing to his knees before hardening into ice. But then another guard released a spear, and only in the nick of time did Flint hurl himself forward, slashing the weapon in two with its anything knife, before sending the willow vines coiling around the guard's legs. Esker whipped another arrow of her bow, and her muscles taut to the fury, and back to back she and her friend gave the Tusk guards everything they had, for Blue, for Flint's ma, and Esker's own pa, and a whole kingdom on the brink of the Ice Queen's rule. Esker flared with sweat, and Flint's cheek was bleeding from where an ice spear had grazed the skin, but there were only two guards left now, and while Flint and Esker drew them closer, edging back towards the palace wall, Esker ducked beneath one leg at the very last moment, giving her and Flint the chance they needed to finish the guards off. Panting, Esker looked up at the Ice Queen, but she simply thrust Blue towards Slither and reached for her crystal staff. Blue tried to wrench free from the shaman's grasp, but she held her and Pebble fast. "Don't like it," Blue sobbed. "Want to go home." And Esker's heart surged with pity for her friend. "You call this lump of uselessness a sister?" the Ice Queen sneered. "What good is she to anybody?" Esker started forward with Flint, her jaw clenched, but she wasn't quick enough to stop what came next. The Ice Queen held her staff over Blue's body, and, though Esker and Flint were now tearing across the hall, they could see the black sparks shooting out of the staff and showering over Blue. The little girl's body stiffened and drained of colour. Then a moment later, she was nothing more than a statue carved from ice, clutching a frozen fox pup. "No," Flint gasped. "No!" The Ice Queen smiled. Oh, I'm not done yet. And in a deft movement she smashed the staff into the statue, and the ice shattered upon impact, falling as a shower of glinting crystals. Flint rushed close, but the broken pieces of his sister and his fox pup lay in a heap before him, and Eska's blood screamed as she knelt beside Flint, and in that moment of grief both she and Flint let their guard down. The Ice Queen seized Eska by the shoulders and Slither grabbed Flint, but the Ice Queen's grip was stronger than her shaman's, and 2 pincers of ice digging into Eska's bones, and she couldn't whistle free like Flint. He staggered backwards, his eyes filled with tears, and Eska's heart swelled with hope at the thought that Flint might be able to fix things. But Flint didn't fight for her, or call out for Tomkin in the battle outside. His eyes met hers, and they were utterly defeated. Then he turned and ran from the hall, and Eska could only blink after his fading footsteps. Slither hastened across the room, but the Ice Queen shook her head. Let him go, to his mute ma in the ice tower, or just to weep for the loss of his silly sister. He's a coward, the Ice Queen muttered, and we've got more important things to deal with. Eska stared at the empty space where Flint had been hardly able to breathe. How could she have deserted her when she needed him most? Shock and hurt coursed through her, and she tried to wriggle free, but the Ice Queen dug her nails in harder, her grasp locking the muscles. Eska needed to escape, and she was dragged across the hall past the silver trees and the organ, and she realised where the Ice Queen was taking her. The music box. The prison she'd fought so hard to get away from. She shot a panicked glance towards the arches, but Balapan was nowhere to be seen. The Ice Queen breathed on the grass dome and it vanished from sight, and she hurled Eska onto the pedestal. The key, Slither. Slither fumbled in his pocket, then he drew it out and slotted it into the music box, and the Ice Queen smiled as she uttered the spell, and Slither turned the key. 3 turns to the left and half a right, with the key cut black in the deepest night. The magic awakes, then limbs unfold, and the stolen child comes under my hold. The music began, soft and chiming, and as the Ice Queen released her hold, Eska felt her body succumb to the music box spell once more. The pedestal turned, and Eska danced, and her eyes burst with tears. This wasn't how things were meant to end. Blue was gone. Flint had abandoned her, Balapan wasn't there to help, and somewhere in this palace her path remained trapped. The Ice Queen turned away with Slither until all that Eska could see was the dark stump of the tattooed eye on the back of his skull. And confident that she was no longer being watched, Eska tried to swivel her own eyes round to her quiver. Was the frost horn still there? If she could just reach it, perhaps it could help. There was a low laugh as Slither spun round. I have eyes in the back of my head, child, and I know that if you thought you weren't looking, you'd give away your only escape route. And he marched over to the music box and tore the frost horn from her quiver. I'll be having that. Eska danced on in despair swelling inside her, and Slither threw back his arm and hurled the horn through one of the arches. Eska didn't hear it crash to the ground. The din of the battle drowned the sound, but she knew what she was completely alone now, without Flint, without the frost horn, without Balapan by her side, and without any plans to stop the Ice Queen from using her voice. The Ice Queen breathed on the glass dome of the music box, and then she sat before her organ and played. The notes sounded louder than ever before, and then her anthem rang out, comprised of just one gloomy voice. A single bauble glowed from the trees. As the gold drifted down towards the organ, the battle cries of the fur and feather tribes dimmed, and then the Ice Queen swallowed the last of her stolen voices. Eska's heart sank, and she turned helplessly on her pedestal as she watched the Ice Queen lift the black orb from her pocket. She breathed all over the orb, and the little hole in the top melted to show golden liquid shimmering inside, and Eska could feel the pull of the words she had Eska could feel the pull of all the words she had ever spoken coming from that glow, and she knew that this was her voice. The Ice Queen drained the golden liquid in one terrible gulp and screwed the empty orb back to her staff. Eska hardly dared breathe. The fur and feather tribes would surrender any moment now, and the Ice Queen would capture them and swallow their voices to gain immortality. Then she would wipe out the tribe and use Eska's sky song to tear the gods down. This was the start of the Ice Queen's rule. But it was not the sound of surrender that Eska heard next. It was an eagle's cry, sharp and high, and Balapan swooped through an arch, and as Eska saw, she realised why she had not heard the frost horn clattering on the ice. The bird had caught it mid-flight, and it was clutched in her talons now. You came, Eska's heart beat. You came when everyone else deserted me. And Balapan soared toward the music box and used the frost horn to smash the glass, but neither the Ice Queen nor her shaman flinched. Eska's body is under my spell, the Ice Queen cried. No beast can help her now. But the Ice Queen underestimated the eagle and the bond between it and the girl. There was a connection, and they went beyond music box bells, ice staffs, and cursed statues. And as Balapan hurled the frost horn towards Eska, she felt her body rage against the Queen's enchantment. Out shot her hand into it for the frost horn, and as she closed her finger around the tusk, Eska leapt down from the pedestal and glared at the Ice Queen. 2 more chapters left, and that's the end of the story. See you next time.